help! Oh my god, it's Superman! I mean, I wish it was Batman, but he will do.
It's a bird. It's a plane. Well, he doesn't really look like either of them. Superman, created in 1938, is often considered the world's first superhero. People that know me in real life know that I'm a huge fan of Batman, but not as many people know that I also really like Superman. I love the old Christopher Reeve films, I've seen all 10 seasons of Smallville, and I'm excited to see James Gunn's new take. I had previously attempted to create a Superman model in my reboot art style, to disastrous results, but I'm hoping he'll look a lot better in the style of my animated series Bulletproof Hearts. So I first started with a poor sketch so I could figure out what I wanted for the design. I generally prefer simple comic book inspired designs, but I wasn't too impressed with the results of some of my previous efforts, so I knew I needed to come up with something more detailed, but I also didn't want to just add a bunch of random lines. The idea I wanted to try was to add some subtle detail to the suit by separating it into different textures of fabric, something you'd only really notice in close-ups, while maintaining that classic Superman look. Then I started modelling. I begin every model with a default mesh I previously made and adjust its proportions to fit whatever character I'm working on. I try to keep things fairly realistic, but it's more a guideline than a rule. I then select parts of my geometry, duplicate and separate them into a new mesh and add a solidify to add some thickness. And that's basically how I create most of the suit, from little pieces of armour to the pants and the belt. Not super complicated. I knew I wanted a 3D logo on the chest, so I first brought in a reference image I drew earlier. Then added a plane and cut out the S shape with a knife tool. I then go back in to clean up the geometry so it's all even-ish quads. I kept the logo separated into 3 meshes, so I can make them different thicknesses to add more dimensionality. The boots I just poly-modelled from a cube. I tried to add a little more detail with some trim and a panel on the front, but as with the rest, I try to keep it fairly reserved. The cape was just some duplicated geometry I extruded out and shaped a bit. For the hair, I start by duplicating part of the head and separate that and extrude the whole thing to give it some thickness before I go into sculpting and remesh it. I then spend a bit of time sculpting it into shape. I then get a curve and add a few strands on the front. Finally, we get to the fun part. I start texturing by adding some procedural materials I made previously and block out the colours. Each mesh does have to be unwrapped, but most things can be done via the automatic processes. Now this is where I wanted to try my idea for the suit. Once I'd UV unwrapped it, I paint a black and white matte that allows me to combine 2 different textures, so I have one texture on the white and one on the black. I also go around all my white panels with a grey line so I can separate that and add a subtle trim. I then combine my typical fabric texture with an old suit texture I made for my Spider-Gwen model, which I converted into the heart style. I then do a quick render of the logo so I can use that as a texture to put the logo on the cape. I draw all the details for the face and it's done. I'm really happy with how this one came out, easily one of my favourite models. The model was completed in about 5 hours, and I streamed the entire process if you want to see some parts in more detail. I would like to give a special shout out to my friend Dilly who made a cameo in the intro. I'd love to know what you all think of my design, and who would you like to see me make next.